Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I want to do a quick video on my RC10 long arm. I've had a few questions and some of them were confusing, and I want to make sure that people don't get the wrong impression or that there's somehow an easy path to a RC10 long arm. There's a lot of parts involved and a lot of know-how, but there's companies out there making all these parts readily available. And I just want to clear some stuff up as I do part one of my journey to build a long arm RC10. So the very first thing I started with was on eBay. There was an auction for a Dragon Punch RC long arm chassis kit. And there was a few other parts that he had available. He had the bulkhead and a couple other things, the shock towers, at least the rear shock tower. The front shock tower was a regular Worlds tower, which will not work on a long arm RC10. I'll show you why, because it's basically an RC10T front bulkhead, which is narrower than what you get out of a team car. So you get the split blocks here and the single bulkhead block on an RC10T, and that's what enables you to run longer arms, is they're thinning out the front of the chassis when you compare it to a team car. So it's not that much narrower, but it is noticeable, and the rear end is a little bit similar. So someone asked the question, they said, well, can I buy a Fan RC kit? And I think what they meant is Fan RC does sell a kit without the chassis for $299. And I think what they're expecting for you to do is buy a pan, whatever color you want from whatever company, right? Maybe you have an extra Worlds chassis and nose plate or whatever. It's going to make that a lot easier to complete, right? You can get everything else and you can just bolt it to that chassis. A long arm, that is not the case. The only thing that really carries over from, let's say, a typical RC10, or in this case, a Fan Graphite Worlds Edition, is the front steering blocks. So the front caster blocks and the steering blocks carry over. Those will go right into the JC long arms. And that's about it on the front end. The bulkhead's different. The arms are different than what you get in a Worlds car. The front bulkhead, the shock tower. So the shock tower is essentially an RC10T shock tower, accepted to do the long travel shock conversion, whether it's 1.02 OG shocks or big bore shocks, whether that's 12 or 13 millimeters. So I'm going to start out by running OG shocks, and then I am going to compare it to my Graphite Edition, and then I'm going to do a big bore upgrade and do a couple other things to modernize this a little bit more. And I'm just going to leave my Fan RC10 Graphite alone for the most part. I'm just going to run it as it is here. It's been great. I really enjoy it. So I'm not going to really modify too much more on this. I'm going to modify this though. So if you buy a Dragon Punch Worlds chassis kit, you're paying $180, I think, on Rubik's Racing. You might be able to get them through Dragon Punch a little cheaper. I got it cheaper because I just did it through eBay, and there's some extra parts thrown in. So that made it a little bit more economical. I probably saved $100 doing that. So the front end's almost completely different. The bell crank's the same, and everything back now to the bulkhead is really the same. So when you get to the back, everything carries over from the graphite or from a regular RC10 to the back of your long arm, with the exception of the inner mounts are different. So the inner mounts are a special mount. You'll notice they take a big screw and a small screw. They're almost like a B2, B3 style mount. Those are specific to the long arm. And you can see why they call it a long arm, right? They notch the chassis back here. And what that does is it doesn't change the outer pivot point and stuff where your hubs and stuff are. So in theory, your hubs, CVAs, all that stuff should stay the same, whatever you're running. It just moves the inner pivot point inward, and it moves it in that, 6 or 8 millimeters. And you have to run specific arms for that. I went with JC Racing front and back. I should have those in later this week, and I'll start getting this car together. And the rest of the bulkhead, though, takes it. This is an associated bulkhead, a typical Worlds tower, wing tubes, stealth gearbox brace, obviously the stealth gearbox. This is a Fan RC, but an associated one will work as well. And then the rear plate is still the same width and everything. It doesn't take a special rear plate. It takes the exact same as the fan RC. It just no pun intended, it fans out in the back to widen that back out to accept that rear plate. So I wanted to get this out there. I am going to do a couple more videos, and I am going to do a full, walkthrough video on this. These cars can be made today between Factory Works and a bunch of the Fan RC parts and Dragon Punch producing their parts, along with fitting some other specialized parts that I'll get into, some B7 parts and stuff like that. You can make basically a replica of either an 89 or, a 91 Worlds type car, whether it's, this is more patterned off Australia. But then I think really what happened was, and people can correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, but I was watching Jason with RC10 Talk, or Dr. MOSFET actually has a bunch of great videos. They're just a little dated, so I don't know if that's actually the most current information out there. But he has a ton. He actually has Chris's from A&L's 91 Worlds car. And that's a long arm edition RC10. And I think that's where a lot of this stuff is patterned off of and comes from, is a lot of companies. A&L, I want to say RPM was making one too. We're making kind of similar conversions for people to convert their cars, since Associated wasn't releasing that car. Hopefully they release it this year, though. Masami's been signed to Team Associated for some product development, so we'll see what happens there. And that's what people are patterning these off of. So you can get the chassis kit from Dragon Punch. So that's the lower deck, top deck, the standoffs. A company called No Coast RC makes metal standoffs. And they might make also like Yokomo rear adapters. So if you want to run a Yokomo wheel like Masami, you can replicate that. And like I said, the tolerance fitting is great, because between the Dragon Punch chassis kit, this is a factory associated RC10T bulkhead. Same with the rear bulkhead. Dragon Punch graphite towers, lined right up, bolted right in. Fan RC steering Worlds steering bell cranks are in there. And then a Fan RC stealth transmission, along with, forgetting their name, and it'll come back to me. They're out of Idaho. Factory Works. Factory Works makes the inner mounts. And let me tell you something, guys. If you're doing vintage builds and you are into vintage racing, whatever, I know a lot of people say support your local hobby shop. I support my local hobby shop all I can and more. The one thing I don't support them with is any of the vintage stuff. They can order it in or whatever. And it's like, for me, if you're not in the vintage game, you're not going to get my money. So the three companies I reach out to on a continual basis, and that have everything I've ever needed, either for my graphite or special projects, whether it's my 870 Yokomos, my Yokomo Works 91 that I'm going to be working on, or my long arm conversion. The first one is Factory Works they're out of Idaho. I ordered these in my bedroom Friday night at 9 o'clock before I was going to bed with my wife. And they were at my doorstep on Monday. They processed them on Saturday morning, shipped them out, and I had them here. And great quality. To my door, they were $30 shipped, and it's not like it's that far. I am in Colorado, but still. Ordering them Friday night, shipping them out Saturday morning, and having them to me here by Monday was fantastic. Great service, great price. I will be going back to Factory Works from here on out for anything they have. The other shout out I want to give to is Hobby Action down in Chandler, Arizona. They carry a bunch of Fan RC parts. That's where I actually got the Worlds brace, the transmission kit I bought from them, and some miscellaneous other parts as well that I think I needed. I think I bought the 1.02 shocks. I bought one set just to see how they'll work on this front and rear when I get my arms in. But I've continually bought from them Fan RC stuff, extra, black battery box, stuff like that. Shipping out of Arizona, they process my orders within a day, and I usually have orders within 2 or 3 days. So I just put an order in this morning. It was shipped, and I bet you I will have it by Thursday or Friday at the latest. So great on Hobby Action. down there supporting the vintage guys. And like I said, they've always had stuff in stock that I needed. No problem. The other one I go out to is Go Fast Hobbies. And again, they process my orders quick. They ship them quick, even though they're out of wherever they're out of there, Illinois or something. They get here just as quick as Hobby Action or anyone else. I seem to have orders in 2 to 3 days. They have stuff in stock, reasonably priced. They're a big supporter of all the vintage stuff. I think I bought one of my Fan RC kits from them. I think one of those is from Hobby Action. I think the other one is maybe from them. Again, continually bought from them without issue. And they are also having the vintage Nats at the end of March. So if you're into vintage, you're into this stuff, you kind of want to go to a one-stop shop, go to those guys. Service is fantastic. Stuff gets shipped out. I've never had an order wrong. The only thing that I go to Go Fast Hobbies, they're my go-to. Even though I can get parts faster, maybe a day or two faster from like Hobby Action, they always include candy and my kids love it. So there's always suckers and taffy in there. So great on them. It's a great marketing ploy. Kudos to whoever's doing that because it keeps me ordering there. And I bet I've ordered 5 or 6 orders from them. And I've always got a little candy package in there. So that's fantastic. So I wanted to get a video out. This is part 1. There's going to be other parts, getting it assembled. I'll do kind of a final build video going over everything and all the parts I've used, who I've got them from. So if you're looking to do this, all you have to do is click some buttons. I will warn people it's not cheap to build a World's Long Arm because all the specific parts, you have to order a bunch individually. There's no manual to build these things as far as I can find. And there's no build list. So that's what was really, I think, the thing that I'm trying to figure out is, for instance, like the hinge pins. I bought an RC10T hinge pin kit. I don't know if that's going to work or not. I don't know if I'll have to get some different inner hinge pins or different outers. I believe that the JC Racing arms, the rear arms, I think come with the outer hinge pins that I think are maybe a tad longer than what you get on a normal World's car. But I'm waiting for those to show up. So when those show up, I'll go through that video. But, my goal is to build a modern day long arm RC10. Take people through it, let them know the cost, what's going on, where did I get my parts from, where are some specialized parts. It's not as easy as buying a Dragon Punch long arm RC10 kit or chassis kit and then grabbing either your Associated Worlds or your Fan RC10 graphite and just piling parts over. Like I said, the back kind of crosses over, but just in the back alone, you're at $60. Just to get the back finish. So the mounts, $30, and the arms, $30. And you're supplying everything else off another car or you're ordering it. The whole front end, bell cranks forward, is almost complete custom. So you're looking for custom shock towers, RC10T bulkhead, the caster blocks and steering blocks crossover, then you got the arms, and then we're trying to figure out the shocks. And like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the OG shocks to compare it to this and see how much of a performance gain this chassis has over just a standard World's graphite chassis from Fan. And then I am going to do a big bore conversion on this and perhaps, graph on some other parts. And that's mainly going to do with the steering setup. I'm going to look at graphing over probably a B6 caster block and steering block on there. And see how that works, see if there's a tremendous amount of bump steer or not. Usually when you convert those, that's kind of the side effect is I've been noticing you get increased bump steer. And what bump steer is, is just reducing your toe in or toe out as that suspension works. So I've had that on my B5. I did some spacers and stuff on there and it's a lot better, but it handles great, but the bump steer is still there. So figuring out some of that geometry is going to be a little bit of a task, but this is part 1. Part 2 and part 3 will come on down the road, but I saw some questions and I got some messages and I didn't want to lead people down the wrong route thinking, I'll just go to Fan RC. I'll buy their $299 Worlds kit minus the chassis I'll buy the Dragon Punch chassis, which, you know, you get off Rubik's Racing for $180, and you're thinking, okay, great, I spent $300, I got $180, you almost got $500 in, and you're still a long ways off. You know, the front shocks are obviously way smaller. 0.71 shocks are standard, and you're going to be going to a 1.02, if not a 1.32, depending. And like I said, I don't know because I haven't built it, so I'm getting all the parts in, and I'm trying to be a guinea pig to kind of help some people out because I was looking for information, couldn't find it. Dr. MOSFET had some awesome videos. They're just dated, you know, they're 5, 6+ years old, and I don't know if those parts are really available. And at the time, like Dragon Punch wasn't producing a chassis, JC Racing, I don't even know if they were even around. So they have made it much easier. And if Factory Works carries the JC Racing stuff, you don't have to get it from Europe, or, you know, I ordered my JC Racing long arms off eBay, and I think they had to come out of Japan. So I did get a good deal, but you know, they're coming, and I should see those any day. And then, like I said, fitting everything up is a whole other thing. So I don't know if I would necessarily go the route of buying a fan Worlds kit minus the chassis. I would probably just do what I did, just buy the parts and pieces as you go. The one thing is, like I said in my previous video, if you haven't seen my fan RC10 graphite, go check that out. What I did was, I bought this and I thought, oh, my truck doesn't have any spare parts, and I need to find some. So that's when I was ordering from Hobby Action as well as Go Fast, and I was buying, spare caster blocks. I bought the 30-degree blocks, extra steering knuckles, the rear hubs, CVDs, because I thought, oh, I'll blow out a CVD, and it turns out, yeah, they're great and great quality. And then these are the ones basically off that, because I have D-Hawk hubs on there. And so these are going to be grafted onto the long arm RC10. So I didn't have to buy a tremendous amount of parts because I already invested in some. But again, yeah, I think it's way better to pick and kind of choose some of those customized parts. So, instead of buying a World's rear hub for like $20, you can get the D-Hawk ones, I think, for $25. They're aluminum, they're blue, they look cool, they work well. So yeah, save some money, and I think piecing it together is kind of the way to go. You'll always run into small miscellaneous stuff, but if you're running RC10s, a lot of those parts can be shared. So, all the hardware is shared. Tires can be shared in between the two, so it's not like if I'm out racing and I run the J Concepts Smoothie 2 tires, I don't need a different set for this versus this, because they're both 3/16 rear axles and same in the front. So one set of race tires will go between them both. Shocks, shock rebuild kit. If you're running the OG shocks or the fan RC10 shocks, you can buy, 1 or 2 kits and service both cars as needed. The only thing you really can't share is electronics. So unfortunately, you got to fit them both out if you want to race them both in one day. But tires, some of the hardware, you can stockpile parts in between them to keep them both running. And then what I am going to do, I have some other videos planned for this. One of them is I did order the Team Associated Octalock conversion kit, because I don't know how it's going to work, but we're going to find out. So I'm going to see if it works on this. I think this shaft might be too small, but I'm not sure. So, this is a B74 HD spring. So I'm going to try it, see what it is. I also ordered some R1 parts. So I am going to do a B7 servo brace. I hope it fits underneath the top deck. And then I did order the titanium spring coupler here with the bolt on that. So if I can get that V2 conversion so I can run Octalock instead of the octagonal pads, I'll do a video on that as well and see if that works. And then the only other thing that I've noticed on this so far that I've had to customize, you'll notice I did cut off the sides because you don't need that garbage. Cut it off. The one thing I did do is on the World's steering, I've cut this down about 3 millimeters, because imagine if that was 3 millimeters higher, it is close to this deck. And I think after you put a ball stud on there and you put linkage, that as this moves forward, I think that linkage is going to maybe catch on there. So I did cut that down about 3 millimeters. So I am going to run a B7, like I said, an R1 B7 brace, much like I have on my fan RC10 graphite. I mean, this is just a stock plastic one, but I am going to run an R1 on there. And I'll get that all set up. And then, like I said, I'll do a complete, there's probably going to be a couple more parts to this video as far as this RC10 long arm build. So I'll do one on some of the customization as far as the transmission and stuff. Probably 2 build videos as far as getting it together and then walking through it and then actually getting the electronics in it and getting it ready to go out on the track and get it over to more. And we'll see how this does against this for comparison. And then, like I said, after that, what we'll do is we'll take off the OG long shocks that I have kind of over in the back there, and we will mount up some big bores. So I'll kind of figure out what I need for the standoffs. I probably just need to run the regular 8s in the front, or 8s in the back, and then probably in the front running 12s like I do on my B5, and get those in there and see how those perform. I may try something with the ball cups and the rod ends, going to like a B7 ball cup in end, just to add a little strength, because obviously, even though I haven't had one pop off, you know, the small white ball cups, I think adding the bigger gray ball cups you get like off a B7, A, will look cool, B, provide some rigidity there as well. But I have a ton of those ball cups, so maybe that's a waste, but we'll see. We're going to try to deck this out a little bit and go from there. So this video is getting kind of long, guys, but this is part 1. Look for the other parts to come in. And like I said, thanks for all the comments and likes and some of the messages. I did get one from Australia, and I hear the surplus rocket motor is the way to go. So I will tell you what, I will keep using that motor with the Amazon gift cards I have, and that $80 motor has been great. So we'll set the same electronics from this car. We're not going to take them out of the fan graphite. We're just going to buy the same thing and dump them in this car, except for the steering servo. I might go to ProTech, maybe a thin one, so I can move this out a little bit more. So we may not do a reedy, but we'll kind of set all the rest of the electronics the same as far as the speed controller and the motor, and then we'll use the same battery. And then, like I said, we'll do a little bit of a track comparison, seeing what we're getting for lap times and stuff, A, compared to modern day, but also B, compared to each other, because as you're fighting for tenths or whatever, or maybe you're interested in vintage, seeing which car is maybe a little bit quicker is kind of cool too. So look for that video soon, guys. Sorry this is taking a little bit longer, but again, support Go Fast Hobbies, support Fan RC, support Hobby Action, support Factory Works, support Dragon Punch RC. Like I said, it's amazing. I have at least 4 different manufacturers on this car right now, and everything is lined up and went together perfectly. So everyone's quality is getting great, including Associated's, ironically, and everything is bolting right in. So support the guys that support vintage to help you out, and we'll see some more great things come out. You know, if you want to see a 91 Worlds, that's, you know, GP3D in Australia makes them, but just for the kit alone was almost $400 without the transmission, trying to get that together. So this is a cheaper alternative. It's not that much cheaper, but it is cheaper. It's more expensive than obviously what you get just buying a Fan Worlds kit, but we can get it there. And like I said, I'll have a video here pretty quick running through this. So again, thanks for tuning in, and look for parts 2 and part 3 coming up.